like rewatched the Josh like Cody podcast episode, like the one where it's like he tells his kicked out of high school story. And I told Samira to rewatch it so we could talk about it today because I feel like everyone I know who really likes him is like, yeah, I rewatch that podcast episode once a month. Well, Josh,
Hey,
I hope you'd be a guest on the podcast.
we could give you Adderall to take before.
I have so many things to say.
I rewatched the episode like this morning when I was getting ready. Forgot how good it was.
When they were like the gain, I was like, I know what that is.
No,
You know what
I
I mean?
know. Yeah, Josh was like,
And it's
"It's the
like,
gain. Is the gain too high?" And I was like, "Ah." Really everything that they were saying cuz also they were talking about like things getting misunderstood online. We like talked about that with with Nicole, I think. But like literally like that was like also so interesting to like hear them talk about.
so for
So
hey guys, I like rewatched the Josh like Cody podcast episode, like the one where it's like he tells his kicked out of high school story. And I told Samira to rewatch it so we could talk about it today because I feel like it's a formative thing that anyone who watches Josh Ovalle is like the episode, the yearly rewatch. Like, everyone I know who really likes him is like, yeah, I rewatch that podcast episode once a month. And I think it's
yeah.
really funny. And I just like haven't watched it in a while. And I went to watch it and I had so many thoughts about it because as a kid, I looked at it and I was like, holy fuck, this is the coolest person ever. I was like, he's the smartest person alive. And it's just
No,
like really
same.
funny because he was 19. He was literally
Yeah.
19 in that, which is like crazy to like, and he's only 2 years older than us. He's 25, we're 23. But like that's crazy because also he is like definitely mature for a 19-year-old boy in that.
Yeah. No, but it's like just so weird to rewatch it and like hear the things that they're talking about now, like that they were talking about back then, but it's like it's just gotten worse. You know what I mean? Like everything that you're like we're talking about like social media and like creators and like content being boring and like people having platforms but not using them for anything, like it just has gotten worse since then and that's like it's like actually insane.
No, I was gonna bring this up because it was crazy the way he was talking about like Logan Paul and like Brennan Taylor and like
Brennan Taylor?
like Sam and Colby. Like, oh my God, the Brennan Taylor challenge. I also really want to talk about like the bits that like Josh used to do on Instagram because they were so ahead of their time.
No, yeah. Yeah.
But um so I didn't even mean to just like start talking about this immediately. I was gonna ask you how your day was.
Oh,
Like it just started coming out, you know what I mean?
no, I know. Because I like just watched it. So it's like in my mind also. Like when I first, like the first time I watched it, I was like so like in like it was when I was like in awe of anybody that was like online or anyone that was like
Yeah.
posting online and stuff. And because I was like obviously a lot younger and it's just weird because now that like separation isn't really there. And like I watch it and it's like more so just like, oh, like these are just like two guys also.
I literally wrote this down in my notes. I like wrote, oh, it's weird because it's like just two guys talking. And
Are
it's
you
weird because, like,
serious?
especially from us doing the podcast, I feel like, or just like doing interviews or whatever, it's like you can unwork the,
Mm-hmm.
like, even though it's like still magic, like you can unwork that thing and be like, oh, okay, I see how this is like, I see how this actually was when they recorded it. And like it
Yeah.
gets taken such a different way when you are someone who's watching someone and you're like idolizing them. Or even when I go to edit the podcast, all like in the moment, there's this like element of anxiety and like stress kind of in a conversation. Obviously, that's not in every conversation, but that's there. And a lot of the time, I don't think it's like as good as it was. And then I go back and watch it, and like watching something and not being in it adds like a gleam over it in this really weird way.
No, I have
Wait,
that
but how was
too.
your day? Because
Um,
I didn't mean to just start talking.
no, no. Wait, but I had to like also say something.
Yeah,
I
go
like want
ahead.
to say
Sorry.
something that's related to it because if I don't say it, I'm gonna forget. But like them just talking about like how they like met and also just like
Oh,
DMing people and stuff and
the
like
thing
just
with
like
Josh watching Cody.
no, I know. Them like talking about like how like they like have met other people in like social media, like other creators and stuff. Like I just like remember thinking that that was like so cool when I watched that for the first time with any like creator. Like whenever creators would like hang out, it was like this like big thing, but it's like not that big thing. And them talking about Finn also. Okay, I gotta stop.
Also, like that reminds me of like how Tana would talk about Shane Dawson before he was canceled. And it was like this whole thing because like she idolized him. And I think that's such like a cool thing also. And it like made me so happy to watch because I was just like, this is sweet because this is really humanizing to him. And I don't know. I was gonna watch the other podcast episode, the one with Lucas too,
Lucas,
because I
yeah.
also loved that episode when I watched it when I was younger,
No,
and I've
same.
rewatched it since. But I was gonna watch it, but then I felt crazy, and then I went to the park like after work, and I was sitting in the park, and I like started reading The Glass Castle. Like I've been reading it, but I was reading it in the park, and a guy like as he's walking past is like. That book's great, and they just turned it into a movie and the movie's great. And I was like, my mom told me it was a movie. And I was just thinking in my head about how you told me it sucked. Like the movie sucked.
Yeah.
And it's like always funny when that happens. The guy was just like, have we met before?
Are you
Like
serious?
literally every time someone is like, I like, oh, that's a good book you're reading, it turns into like, have we met before? And I'm like, no, we fucking haven't met before. You know we haven't met before. But like it was so nice and I like it was like a sweet like interaction that he left. He was like, have a good day, have fun reading your book. And he literally came back and asked me if I wanted to get lunch with him.
Are you serious?
Yeah. He seemed like a little bit older than me. Like
Was he cute?
and he didn't seem weird. Like he just seemed like
Oh,
he
was he
seemed nice.
cute?
Like I don't know.
Did you say yes?
No, I said no.
Do you like the book though so far?
Yeah. It's
Okay.
like written like I'm like, oh, this writing, but like I needed that. You know what I mean? Like the
Yeah.
writing's kind of basic, but I mean, I know
Yeah.
that she's writing from like a kind of childlike voice on purpose.
Yeah. Well, I think it's also just like that the story is like so like insane.
I just like reading about her life right now because I just
Yeah.
haven't read an easy book. I was reading Gravity's Rainbow and it actually like it was a good book. Like I also read Infinite Jest and I like to me like I know that like Infinite Jest probably was written because Gravity's Rainbow was written. Also, probably nobody cares what I'm talking about. Cares about what I'm talking about right now. But I don't know. I would have rather not read Gravity's Rainbow and only had read Infinite Jest because to me that was like Infinite Jest did the things Gravity's Rainbow did, but I liked
Better.
the story way better and it was like a lot cooler. I don't know.
Yeah. No, that makes
And about drug
sense.
addiction instead of like war. And I just don't like reading about war, I don't think. So
Yeah. I don't think you like I don't think war is really your thing, you know. I liked Oppenheimer, I'll say it.
I'm pissed off about Oppenheimer, but like as a
Yeah.
movie, it's good, you know?
Yeah. So how was your day?
Are you okay because of your text? Samira
Yeah,
went to
yeah. Okay. Can you
Planned
cut this out?
Parenthood for can I say that?
Yeah, yeah. You can say for
She went for
non-abortion
non-abortional reasons.
purposes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I got like okay, so I like walked there and I just got like really scared because there was like a bunch of construction workers like doing construction like stuff outside and they were like kind of like catcalling like other girls like walking like by and stuff.
Ew.
Then I got really anxious because I thought they were gonna like say something to me as I like walk in, but they didn't say anything. But there was like a guy standing like or sitting on like a bench outside. And then it honestly like wasn't that bad. Like the other times I've been was like way worse.
It's just
But
insane that
yeah.
like people spend their day doing that.
No, I know. It's actually crazy. It's like, well, I don't, because I think Monroe was talking about this where he was saying that like it's like a
Don't they like
job.
pay them?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Like you can like get like a job on like Indeed or something that's like standing outside of certain things and like, yeah, it's like really weird. But
No, that should like actually be illegal.
yeah,
Like if
but
abortion is like legal in a state, I think it should be illegal for people to protest outside. I mean, I guess
yeah.
that's like not a thing because like
Well,
free speech, but
but it's
I don't
also like
know.
literally like, especially like, well, it shouldn't like, no matter what, like that like shouldn't be like safe, but also like for like any place that provides abortion, like is probably providing like a bunch of other services. You know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
not just abortions. So it's like, okay, like that doesn't even make any sense because people come here for like so many different reasons.
Do you think when people get to a certain like when a certain amount of people die off, like it'll stop happening?
No, I
Oh.
don't think I think abortion, like I don't think it'll ever stop happening because I don't think it'll ever be like something that everyone will agree on. But I don't think anything will be like that. Because even if you think about like places that aren't big cities, like the South and stuff, like there's still a lot of like division there. But yeah, so I went to Planned Parenthood and now I'm back.
You have a good Planned Parenthood?
It was okay.
Okay.
So any updates?
Me?
Yeah.
I sent you my screenshot this morning.
Brittany's going on a date and I can't say who, but it's good.
Trust me, guys. This one is good. You are gonna like this. When
Yeah.
people saw that dude's face in 2 episodes ago, I bet they like all screamed. But this one, you're gonna like this one.
Oh my God,
Good.
wait. Also, I was I was gonna say this when we was watching like the Josh Ovalle episode. I was like, Cash is kind of Josh Ovalle.
You actually have mental problems.
Like, am I wrong?
So Cash is Samira's new bae.
I was saying more so like with Josh, like say like how he like just like does bits and is mean to people.
Anything it's me and Colin. Because
Oh,
but that's also because like I watched that when I was younger and was like, he's right. I should probably say
yeah.
the most insane thing all the time.
Yeah. Well, also it's just like you can say anything if it's also like well Colin has jester's privilege. Thinking
Yeah, I
about
don't
that
think women
too.
ever get jester's
Yeah,
privilege.
well,
Like
that's
you
what
will
I was
never
gonna
have
say.
that.
Like, I was thinking about that with like saying the like stuff he did, and I like because I didn't really think about it that much when I was younger watching it, but it's like if a woman were to do any of this stuff, it'd be like over, you know?
In the episode he talks about um like kind of like harassing like Carly and Contro.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about it and I was like, it is like funny that he's like, like honest enough to just be like, I don't like her. Like, I don't like her because like she's just like, and he's like pretty honest about the fact that like she's just not like the same kind of person as him. And
Hmm.
like he's pretty like, I feel like good at talking about it. But the fact that he kept calling her a bitch on that podcast, I
No,
was
I
like, oh
know.
my
It was
God,
like
he's
actually
calling
kind of
Carly
bad.
and Contra a bitch. Like it
Like
just
it
like
was
is funny
bad.
because like that like people can't do that now.
Yeah.
But like
Yeah,
I
that's
wonder if
really
he
weird.
would.
I feel like because also I guess 6 years was like a long time ago.
No, it definitely was. I mean, he does the same thing to guys. So it's like,
Yeah.
but I was just like, I don't know how I feel about him harassing these girls.
Cash asked me the other day, he was like, so is it ever acceptable to call a woman a bitch?
Well, it's weird because it's only now becoming like this like overall joke of like everyone knowing that it's like a crazy thing to do. That joke that we made about when we saw the Hunger Games and then we were like, yeah, he
Yeah.
was so close to calling her a bitch like in the new Hunger Games movie.
Yeah, it is like interesting because I feel like it like definitely is like something that's more recent. Like, obviously, like it's like different when it's like who's saying it, but like I don't even know if that matters because it is still like internalized misogyny no matter what. Like if a guy's saying it, but I think it also is like different depending on who's saying it and like what like if you like know them, you know what I mean, and like know what they like think. But I
Mm.
don't like obviously that's like not in every case. I don't know. It's like a weird like thing, but yeah.
Well, I'm curious to know like if Josh looked back on that, I wonder what he would say because it was 6 years ago. And I'm like very curious about if
Well,
he would be like, yeah, I was being like a dumb like teenager.
yeah, he was also 19. So I feel like that like
But also, I think everything he said was reasonable in that podcast.
yeah, like I honestly don't think like I feel like he would like just say the same stuff. You know what I mean? Or like
Yeah.
yeah, like I don't think that I don't
Like
think
maybe
he's
he wouldn't call a girl a bitch on a
yeah.
podcast, which is also
Yeah.
funny because like the way he's doing it isn't like I feel like it's so different coming from him because he's like kind of this like feminine man who like isn't he's like very self-aware and very like just like oh like this is just different for me and my friends and like some people like that and that's fine. Also what he was talking about like moral compasses of posting good content and like actually trying to entertain people. It's interesting because that like line is different for everyone and Carly and Contra probably is doing her best. And
Yeah.
that like is interesting too because we've so recently been in discussion about what's mean and what's not. And that's what I was thinking about during the podcast episode when I was watching it too, because I was like I was just like, damn, like, my ex like would fucking like hate this shit if I said it. But
Yeah.
like because Josh said it, he's like so funny. But like that's not Josh's fault. You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like if
It's
I
like,
said that shit, like they would think I'm like such like an awful person, you know? But
yeah.
I think that's just how the world works. And maybe it's less like that now, but I don't know. It also just
Yeah.
depends on who you're talking to.
Yeah, I feel like I've gotten like desensitized. If I like know like who's like saying it, I feel like then I don't think that there's any like if you say something like I don't think I'm ever gonna take it as being use you being mean no matter what you say because
Yeah.
it's like I know you, you know, and it's like I feel like we're just like around people who say like very like insane like out of pocket things. And it's never like any like malice behind anything.
Hmm.
And it's also different too, I think like if it's within the confines of like you and your friends versus like I guess on a podcast or like on like the
But
internet.
even with him, it was like, oh, there wasn't malice behind that. Like there wasn't
No,
this
yeah.
ill
Yeah.
intention behind it, which is
Yeah.
like interesting too, because in a way, we know that about him because we've watched him. Bro, just like rewatching that in general, like again, we're talking about like the Cody Co like kicked out of high school Josh Ovalle podcast episode. Like every time I used to watch it when I was younger, I'd feel like really like inspired. Like it like
I
really
wrote
like
this
it's
down too.
a lot of different things like give you that kind of feeling. I think like also the Emma Chamberlain one with Cody gave me that feeling a lot where I was like, holy shit. And I was also like so jealous of like the position she was in like at the
Yeah.
time. But that's like a whole other thing. But it's like just crazy to rewatch because that was like the original feeling that actually made me like I think admire Josh Ovalle and he's a creator who like thinks that like you should be entertaining people if you have a platform and like challenging things. And it's like also the thing with like him messing with Carly was like in a way him challenging that, which I think is cool. When I was young, I looked at it and I was like, this person is so smart. Um, and I felt so inspired by like all of the things he had accomplished, which also seemed really huge at the time when like in reality, like the films he made like were like super successful and stuff, but like they were just these short films. And
Yeah.
like it's just really funny. But it also still gave me that same feeling, like watching the interview and like feeling inspired and like I don't know, like my head getting all warm and like literally feeling like I wanted to cry while watching it, which is like weird to say because it's just some guy talking. But I don't know. I think it's just like a formative thing. And I'm sure like the nostalgia of rewatching it, like so often during like integral years of growing up also like plays into that. Like weird to get older and then like see it in new ways, even just like realizing while watching it that like he's 19, you know?
Yeah.
And like when I was watching that, I was 17. So like watching that at the time was like a different thing. But I don't know. Everything he's saying is still really cool and like intelligent and like also ahead of its time. Because I don't think I knew anyone online at the time. Or I wasn't watching anyone else online who was talking about the kinds of things he was and doing it in such a smart way. In a way that was also funny. I don't know. It's just like a weird thing to unwork just the perception that I had of it. Like it has been unworked, but it's just like weird to like recognize now how I used to look at that. And then in comparison, probably all of the media I was consuming online. And like the magic isn't gone from it, but I don't know. It just felt so unreal, which I think happens a lot when you watch things as a kid and you're really impressionable. Um,
Yeah.
Yeah, because now
No.
like we also have yeah, I was saying earlier we have like an understanding of how like podcasts and like
Yeah.
even videos are constructed.
Yeah, I feel like when I like watched it for the first time, I remember like also like because I felt that like same way where I just felt really inspired. And I also had that like rewatching it today where I was like him talking about like making films and stuff and like writing because that was like something that I wanted to do like a lot when I was younger. And in a way, it also like shifted my mindset on media and on like the media that I was consuming and I
Hmm.
feel like it just made me a lot more aware and smarter about the media I was consuming. And I know like people have talked about this before and stuff, and like people have done like a lot of like deep dives into it, but the media that you consume like affects you so deeply and like it's everywhere like literally just like with the people you follow on like social media on Instagram or like the videos you watch or like the shows you watch and there's so much media out there right now because but it like impacts you so deeply on ways that you can't even really recognize. And I feel like that after watching that, I was like I started to be super conscious about even just like the people I was following on Instagram, and like unfollowing a ton of people if like I didn't really want to see like what they were
Hmm.
posting or stuff, or like muting people, and like watching like specific videos or watching specific creators that I felt like were kind of aligning with like the version of myself that I like wanted to be, or the version of myself that I like felt like I could be. I feel like that was sort of like the first like foray into it. And I think like Josh also was just like the first, I guess, like creator who like showed me that.
Dude, he like opened my eyes to the fact that media could be smart and challenge your brain, because I don't really think anyone on YouTube was making super challenging content. And when his like brand of humor kind of rolled around, it was like, oh, this is like making you like kind of think an extra layer,
Yeah.
which I really liked. And then, yeah, exactly what you were saying, I relate to a lot, because him talking about that brought me into this awareness where I was like, oh, I only really want to watch something if it's gonna challenge me a little bit, or if it's gonna expose me to like new ideas. Him talking about like Jake Paul, and like I know he doesn't talk about David in that one, but he talks about it in like the other podcast he did with Lucas, his brother, and Cody, that like came out a little bit after that first one. Um, like people have like gone back and been like, wow, he was like ahead of his time, because like of all the stuff that came out about David Dobrik being a crazy person. Um, and he like said it before anyone else did. And I remember watching that and being like, this is hilarious. And like the way he talked about David and like made him out to be like this like guy who's just like garnering this cult. Same with Jake Paul. And it's actually like great because like I think kids who were really impressionable needed to hear that shit, because like nobody was like understanding that because we were young. You're like so much more easily tricked. Like I mean, not like I wasn't tricked by Jake Paul, but I feel like I was more easily tricked at first, at least by David, because I was like, oh, this is just a guy being funny. And then as time went on, I was like, this is kind of weird. And then when Josh started talking about it, I was like, yeah, this makes a lot of sense. But like the thing with Jake Paul too, about like him garnering like a cult of like kids, and literally there being like a million people who would buy anything that he sells at any time, is like insane. And I feel like such a like good thing that like I don't know. I feel like it was also kind of like a cool thing to hate Jake Paul at that time, and he was like huge at that time.
Like I just am like, oh, if like a man's just like there and like being loud, it's like that's like the brand of comedy that he has of like, oh, I'm just like
Yeah.
like standing there and like being really animated and being really loud. And it's also hard to like not view that in like the way of like, okay, if like there was a girl doing the exact same thing being loud, like people would just call her annoying. Like she wouldn't be funny.
Everyone calls Liza Koshy annoying, and like
No,
her humor is
exactly.
definitely not for everyone, but she's like not doing that, you know? She's just
Yeah.
like, and she's like a
That's like
pretty good person, like I
yeah,
think.
but that's like the same humor as like there's a reason like David Dobrik and like Logan and Jake Paul are all men. You know what I mean? And like that's why they
Yeah.
like are this successful. But it's also just like weird to watch that, like to watch it now and like see where Jake and Logan Paul are, and like with them like fight, or what like Jake Paul like fighting or whatever, and like that's like so crazy to see now because it's like, okay, who would have thought that that would be like where we are now?
Well, literally all those creators have turned into something like crazy. Even like at the time, I know Josh like had Emma Chamberlain in a video, and
Hmm.
she was just a girl, and now
Yeah.
she's what she is. I was also gonna say, it was crazy hearing him talk about the people who were making this like cheap content. And I know you mentioned this earlier. I was gonna bring this up as well. It's insane because it almost sounded like it was this like rarity where he was like, okay, these people are specifically really not trying and really just trying to make money off people. But the internet has like become so populated with people like that. Like it's almost like it's crazy how he was talking about it, because he was talking about it like it wasn't a norm, but now it's the norm, and that's really weird.
He like had said, or they were talking and he was like, the like anyone can like do anything kind of like world that we live in right now, where like anyone could post content and it could like hypothetically become popular. So then it's like you don't go into it like because you like love it or because you want to try, like what he was saying about how like people will like make something and then they'll just be like, yeah, this will do, and then just like post it. It's like not like I feel like it used to be like more so like you wouldn't post something unless you were like so proud of it, you know, or unless like you worked so hard on it and it was like original and it was new or whatever. And now it's like more so just like doing it like just as like a source of income. And
Well,
yeah.
also there used to not be such an easy like path to making money off of it.
Hmm.
I think when
Yeah.
people didn't know that they could make money off of it, it was such a different thing, which is kind of probably obvious because like everyone
Yeah.
has kind of talked about this. But I think it's also interesting because he was talking about how you shouldn't be able to be online and have a following just by being yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that was like an interesting thing because it was making me think because when we started this podcast, I was getting like insecure where I was like, I don't know, are we doing well enough? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And obviously
Yeah.
it's a thing you have to learn because like we're just like getting like slowly getting better at speaking about things and like knowing how to actually be like ourselves like on video. I don't know. Like, do you think people should be able to like be famous or even make a living off just being themselves? Because like I think in a sense, like really good content is someone just being themselves. And I don't think that's exactly what he meant by it. Like what more so what he
Yeah.
meant by it was just like someone just sitting in front of a camera eating and talking.
Yeah.
Um,
But also it's like I was
yeah.
thinking about this too where I'm like, but even like those videos, like they are like there's a reason people watch those videos. You know what I mean? And there's like a reason that people like resonate with those videos. And I feel like that was like why like I feel like that was why YouTube and like creators like became what they became originally was because that didn't exist before because there were like famous people and there were celebrities, but like they like those people were always playing a character, you know, like if you're an
Hmm.
actor or even if you're like a musician or something, but it's like you don't know what that person's day-to-day life is and you don't like get to know that. But then like if you're watching like a vlog or like someone like literally doing like a mukbang, like sitting and like eating or whatever, like it's like oh, like you like are seeing this person like talk about like themselves and like you're getting to know this person. And I feel like it like ties into everything we've like talked about even like being young and like not having a lot of friends and like watching that and kind of like finding friendship
Hmm.
through that in this like parasocial way. Um, so I don't know. I don't know. I feel like I don't know if I agree with it completely. Like I understand also like what he's like saying too.
Yeah.
Because it is also like a weird like egotistical thing of being like, oh, I'm like interesting enough that people are gonna want to watch me for just me. And like I don't have to really try or do anything. But I also think that that is like a subgenre of content that I think exists for a reason.
Yeah. Well, people just like knowing people because we're all just fascinated with humans. I mean,
Yeah.
we're fascinated with like him in the same way that other people are fascinated with someone, I guess, who is just talking at a more surface level, how everything's for just like different people. But also
Hmm.
like sometimes like I don't know, like I used to watch Tana and she like I don't know, but at the same time I do genuinely think she was entertaining people and she was doing something on YouTube that like blew up for a reason because it was something like even though she's
No, she
kind of like
was.
even though she's Tana and like you know everything that encompasses that she was like uniquely herself and talking in this way like the story time she did blew up because no one had told stories like that on YouTube. And I think it's more like I feel like in that video, he's like kind of challenging people to do something new. And I feel like sometimes, like, I don't know, it's really easy to say, like, oh, someone sitting in front of a camera just talking about their lives, like, isn't something new, but it definitely can be in a certain way.
No, yeah, I agree like with that part of it, like just like the idea of challenging it to be something new. Cause I feel like especially now, and I'm like wondering how it definitely like has come become a lot more common like since that episode was posted about people like literally just like blowing up on like TikTok for like making content where they're literally just like showing like a like day in their life like of themselves just like doing
Hmm.
like random stuff, you know what I mean? Or like but I think that like also like I think that there's always like new stuff to do. like even like talking about Tana, because we like haven't really talked about like that, like about her, like
Yeah, we need to.
yeah, because like her, like she like honestly like, changed like YouTube in a way. Like she like brought
Yeah.
in like a whole new like category of story times that didn't exist in the way that she did, and also just like because she was like so entertaining, but she was also just like herself, I'm
She
assuming.
was kind of just screaming at a camera.
Because like story times weren't a thing like before that, and on the way that like she told it, were like it was just very like uncensored. And I think a lot of people just really liked that. I feel like she like revolutionized like YouTube in that way. And I think that you can always like do something new. Like even if you're literally just sitting and talking in front of a camera, like I think that like there's always a different angle you can take on it. But I think you can like take a different angle on it while also being genuine. And I feel like that's where it's like the struggle comes in, I guess.
Well, I was thinking about this a lot in terms of making a podcast, like kind of backtracking a little about, oh, like you feel like you have important enough things to say to sit in front of a camera. And I thought about that a lot because there's a really weird connotation to having a podcast. And I
Yeah.
even feel myself talking about it. And I know we literally just started. Like it's so new. Like I sometimes expect so much out of myself. Like in talking about it with other people, I'm like scared to say the word podcast because
Same.
I don't want them to think that I think I'm like important enough like that like someone should listen to me talk for an hour online, you know? But then it's like, well, what are we doing right now? Like,
Yeah.
but I don't know. It's really weird because, like, if you think about it, and it's like weird because we're like breaking the like,
The like yeah.
you know, and it's
No.
like, oh God, and now it's like, oh, I feel all the things. You know
Ah.
what I mean? It's like all the
Yeah.
eyes are coming through, even
Ah.
though there's probably gonna be like 200 views on this one because it's like a solo episode, and it's like, you know, it's like you feel it come through, and then like you
Yeah.
break the thing, and then it's like, what? And then it's like now we have a bunch of things to unpack.
Well,
You know?
I like struggle with that a lot because I also have that same thing where like if we're talking to someone, I like never want to say the word podcast or even just like talking about it and stuff. And I think I also just like have always struggled with like feeling like what like I like have to like say like isn't like important enough, or like I don't want people to think I think it's important enough. But also I've been thinking about this a lot lately where I'm like I think you like need a little bit of that in like your
Also, it
life.
is important enough. Like I can say that when
Yeah.
you say it is
Yeah.
like, no, what you have to say is important enough. Like it like someone might like it and like
Yeah.
that's all it is. Like it doesn't have
Yeah.
like people definitely take it to a crazy different extreme. And it's so funny because it's like when I say that I don't have that thought in my head, but when you say it, I'm like, oh no, what you have to say is important. You
Yeah.
know? It's
Yeah.
just hard to recognize about yourself. But I also do recognize at the same time that the way it's taken, I don't know. People do go crazy with it, especially when they actually get a following, which is really
Yeah.
scary because there's like not a lot of people left who didn't kind of warp when like after they knew people were listening.
And like I feel like you have to have like a little bit in like of that like in you, like just like in order to like live, I think, in order to like be like happy and like to not like because otherwise I feel like you're just like doing yourself a disservice because otherwise you like won't do anything. Because like any sort of art or like anything is like that idea of like, oh, like I like am worthy of it and stuff. And I feel like it just like the problem is when you like get a following or you gain a following and then it like amplifies and it escalates into like this really like insane sense of entitlement.
I know that you've also talked about just like feeling like you're not entitled enough for me, but I feel like it's so true for you at least because I know that you like have trouble like taking what's yours even though like you
Yeah.
deserve it and you and it I mean I don't think anyone's like entitled to anything, but then I think everyone's entitled to everything. And if like you know what I
Yeah.
mean? It like
Yeah.
I think that more in that sense. Hold on, Bug really wants to get out.
I know. I can like see you looking over. Like,
Wait,
does she
check this
not know
out.
how to get out? Is it the water? Oh.
No, it's
Hi.
not. It's just the door.
Aw. Oh, hey.
My bad. About it being really inspirational that he was talking about just like making art and like anyone talking about something they're successful in is so interesting. And it's always, I think, like the like any video I've seen or any interview I've seen that's really good, it always kind of has that element to it. He tells his story about getting kicked out of high school. He talks about how he then gets suspended and has to go to like do independent studies. And his parents make him stay extra time because they're like, we're not picking you up, like sit and like do your homework. And then
Mm-hmm.
he's like, okay. And then he was explaining that he had this like independent study that started at like 8 a.m. And then by 8:45, also I'm just explaining this so like people
Yeah,
watching
yeah,
like
yeah, no, yeah.
by 8:45 he was like done and he'd leave and he'd sit in the parking lot all day and make vines. And that
Yeah.
literally like made my head buzz to hear
No,
because it's
same.
crazy knowing the idea of him as a person now and all the people he's impacted with just being such a cool like YouTube person, but also just like an internet person and like having cool ideas that challenge things. All it takes is someone to just actually follow through with like their ideas and like the fact that he was brought there through all these actions happening and it wouldn't have maybe happened if it weren't for him getting kicked out of high school and having like this time on his hands is so crazy. And it's like it's really nice to hear because it's just nice to be reminded that things work out how they're supposed to and like new doors open for people when they're least expecting it or when something bad turns into something good. It's just like really nice to hear. Someone can then take a platform like that and impact people the way that Josh Ovalle did. Because I was looking at his Instagram, like his latest post today, and I saw how literally every single day there's new comments begging him to go on emergency intercom.
Yeah.
And that's crazy because like I don't know. Obviously, it makes sense. Emergency Intercom has a following. Drew and Enya like also have a following, but I feel like they have a following for a similar reason of them being really genuine and doing like having like a sense of humor that was pretty unique. I don't know. It's just cool that people care that much about him. Like he's just a guy,
Yeah.
and he's like obviously so talented and creative. Um, but it's funny because like I don't know, like when we bring this up to people, when we're like, yeah, we're trying to get Josh Ovalle on the podcast, like people are like, yeah, thank God. Like he's been on like those like that podcast twice and like one other podcast, and like it's the only thing of him talking in that kind of like long form way online. And like the fact that everyone had the same idea of like this is really good and he's really smart and I'm gonna like rewatch this every year like is really
I
funny.
Yeah, I also was thinking about that in like, because it's like what, because like he was talking about how like he like had to like take like Adderall before coming on like the Cody Co podcast because he's not good about like long like conversations like that and stuff. And it's also like I was thinking about this where I was like, what if he just like doesn't want to come on? Like you know what I mean? Because also like it
Yeah.
makes sense too, where it's like I feel like there's a lot of like people like have so many expectations about him. Like even we're guilty of this too, where we're like we can't wait for like Josh to like come back and like have like a new project or something like that. Like because I feel like when you're away from like the internet in the way that he's been away from it, it's like everyone's kind of expecting him to like do something crazy when he comes back. And
Mm.
it's like he's not like just like a beginner anymore. You know what I mean? Like he like has like a platform, like he's like made film. So it's like like it's like there's like this like weird pressure on him now to like come back to the internet. Like he can't just come back. He has to come back and like do something really big. And like even with like going on like a podcast or something, like I feel like he like the really he only was on like Cody's podcast and like one other one or whatever. But it like even that like probably like he didn't like love it. I
It's
feel like
probably
maybe.
stressful, yeah.
Yeah.
The offline on purpose. And I think it
Yeah.
is kind of funny that we're talking about this because it's like we made a
No, I
podcast
know. I know.
like begging him to come on.
Yeah.
And like I also have thought about this where it's like we posted in the
Oh
emergency
yeah.
intercom Reddit and these people replied and were like, if I were a YouTuber and someone made a podcast like this about me, I'd kill myself about that. And I feel like more of what we are accomplishing in um making a podcast with this like goal of getting him on. It's like funny in the way that like he's funny, you know?
No.
Also, I think it's just like almost like this like second like 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 peeling back one layer of like the parasocial relationship like idea and then being like, okay, well now that we like because we see what this parasocial relationship has done to us and like that it is a parasocial relationship, it's funny if we joke about it and then like take it a step further and do like the crazy thing that we could do with it because this is like how fans would act and it's a like dynamic that both participants are kind of responsible for and then it's just an interesting thing in general, you know?
Yeah. And I feel like because I don't even think like obviously we like want to get him like on the podcast, you know, that's like the goal. But like I don't even think that like I think that there's like so many other like ways that it's like more important than that. Like what you were saying about how it's just like funny, like it's just like a bit and it's just like funny to have like every guest say that, especially people who like don't know who he
Don't
is
know.
or like don't
Yeah.
care at all. Like because like obviously like it's just about like internet culture in general and stuff. And I feel like that was just such like a formative part of the internet for both of us and like something that like we both just like grew up on and like shaped so much of our humor and also shaped our friendship in a way. And I feel like that's like a really big part of it.
Him and just his friend group,
Yeah.
like Enya and Drew, like the like just that like realm of the internet is super unifying to people because people will be like, "Oh, are you like an emergency intercom listener?" And it's kind of like a super similar thing to that. I don't know. I don't know why it's kind of more okay to do that about a podcast. Um because like that's kind of this like brand of humor. But I feel like it was super unifying to people in the same way where it's like you see that someone else was on this side of the internet. It's like, oh, you understand. Like you
Yeah.
understand like YouTube culture, which is like
Yeah.
then like a lot of creator culture and which is then just like internet fan culture and I don't know. It just like plays in a lot of things and I also think that it's cool that like to me, he was super real about stuff online, literally just in that podcast episode. And it's also funny because it's like we're just talking about this singular podcast episode that's like one like portion of who this person is.
But also like someone who he was like 6 years ago when he was 19. So it's like that's also so interesting that like we're talking about in that lens where it's like he could be someone like so different now. Like he
Yeah.
definitely is so different now, but like
I was gonna say, I think that a lot of the people, the reason it's so unifying is because it's kind of more than just like we all like this person, we all think this person's funny. It's like, oh, well, obviously then you like kind of agree with this person's like morals in a weird way, or you like
yeah.
agree with how they view the world. And it's almost this like more, I think, genuine view of the world. And like obviously that's like taking things to like an extreme at the same time because you don't really know what someone's thinking or why they watch this person. But that is, I think, what it really feels like whenever I like meet someone and I'm like, oh, you watch the same people I watch. It's like, okay, we have like similar brains. Well, it's so weird because when I think about it, I think of describing it as humor, but then there's this weird, I don't know, maybe it's consciousness, but like I feel like when I talk to someone, and it's not always just like someone who watches the same people as me or someone who likes Josh Ovalle or likes
Yeah.
Emergency Intercom. Like when you just talk to someone, you're like, oh, this is a person. And like I think it's almost just like this scarcity in finding people that align with you. And when you do find people who align with you, you're like, I feel it. And like, I feel it for this reason I can't describe. And it's almost like I feel like I pin that to having that like shared interest.
It's true. It also is like scary too. This is kind of going back to what we were talking about before and like what they were talking about in the episode of just like it like being harder to like find people that like align with you or like find people that are like genuine. And I think it's because like everyone, especially now, is just so afraid to try something new because like there's safety in making the content that people are making right now. Like there's like it's gonna get views, it's gonna hit the algorithm, it's gonna like get money. And it like is really sad because I feel like that like scares a lot of people probably from like making content that would be something different, but that would be like really, really cool. And I
Mhm.
feel like everyone's just like waiting for like people to do that.
Yeah, I it does feel like everyone's waiting for there to be a shift, even just in the internet in general, in like a bigger way that will take more for it to be possible. But it
Mhm.
feels like, at least for me, I feel like I've been waiting, especially because like Josh Ovalle hasn't been on the internet. Like I'm like I
Yeah.
was waiting for him to come out with projects because I was excited to see anything he'd make. Like I know that it would be something that he tried really hard on. Like I've been in this state, and I think a lot of other people have been, where I'm just like waiting for something new to come out and for something to like make me excited again. And I get that with writing sometimes, where I'll read something I have like new that I haven't read, and it like makes me really excited and inspired. But it just feels really impossible to find that online. It feels really
Yeah.
impossible to find that in like content world, which is
Yeah.
sad because there's like it's such like a bigger creative space. It's like as big as like writing or like any other like big field is.
Well, even with like shows and like movies and stuff, because I feel like I also haven't even watched like a show, like a new show or like a new movie recently that like made me really excited and inspired.
I think
But
that
yeah.
like the reason people like Nathan Fielder so much is because he's almost like the Josh Ovalle of our time of comedy.
Yeah.
You know what I
And
mean? Like it's like
like in
that
like
role.
the television world. Cause like yeah, I guess like the rehearsal would be like the closest thing to like watching something and being like excited about it. Um
Or The Curse.
oh yeah, sorry. That's
Yeah.
that's what I
I
meant.
mean, both of those were
Yeah,
like
yeah. But like yeah, the curse, like cause that was like the newer one. That was like the closest thing to like it being something new.
obviously movies will continue to do that. And I think
Yeah.
that's why there was so much hype around Challengers, because it was just this like thing that everyone got to be excited about together. It's like a good movie. It's because it's something you haven't seen before. Um,
Yeah. And I think the
but
community aspect of it too is like a really big thing with, because even like with like online people, it's like you can find someone online that you really, really like Joshua Vai, for example, but it's like the community of people that also watch him is what like makes it fun. Like that's what makes it like feel like
yeah,
magic, you know?
I was gonna say with like Nathan Fielder, with that example, I think it's even just like in his actions, he's doing things to be like hilarious just like by doing them, like casting Emma Stone
Yeah.
in a show where he's dating her is like, yeah, like he like that he thought about that and he was being funny about it, and it's like he got her to do bits with him. Like it's
Like
like
the
they were doing
trailer,
bit, you
like
know?
the trailer parodying like anyone but you.
And like them going on like that and like going on a
Like the
talk show and
Jimmy,
like
yeah, yeah.
doing like a whole bit on the talk show, like on I think Jimmy Kimmel. Like that reminds me of the kind of stuff that like Josh would do on Instagram, where he would
Yeah.
like the thing where he would just like at David Dobrik and be like, "Do you like me?" Then like make a whole video talking about it, like to be fun. This is me editing, and I'm so mad I didn't articulate this right, and I just want to say this right now, is that the thing about it that makes it so cool is that they're using the power they have. Like Nathan Fielder's using the power he has to get Emma Stone, and Josh was using the power he had to interact and like harass David Dobrik. I think it's like a type of humor, but it's also just like thinking of like the stupidest, craziest thing you could do and doing it. And like, yeah, I think people are just scared to do that.
Yeah. And I think people are scared to like make anyone mad or like make other creators mad.
I
So
mean,
it's like,
literally, we encounter this socially. Like, I feel like
yeah.
we encounter this like with our personalities almost. I mean, you know what I'm
Yeah.
talking about, but
Yeah.
like I feel like I've felt like that in our social lives, where someone like doesn't really understand the way we act because it's so just like I don't know. I don't really even think we're like that insane,
I
but
don't
I
think so
think we're just
either.
pretty ourselves. Like I often see people have negative reactions to that.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty out of breath after that one, all right.
Yeah. My ears hurt.
Me
Like, I
too.
gotta get these off of me.
Well, Josh,
Hey.
I hope you'd be a guest on the podcast.
We could give you Adderall to take before.
Wait, Josh, if you come on the podcast, we'll take Adderall with you.
True.
The thing is, okay, I was thinking about this today also, and I was like, oh yeah, if we get him on, like, I want to like pretend like as soon as he like logs on, I want to like be like, I'm sorry we used your name in the podcast and made everyone try to get you on. Like I'm
Yeah.
being forced to apologize,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. No, that's
So
good.
that I
That's
think that's
good.
pretty good, right?
That's pretty good.